All right. First of all, I'm excited to be here. This is my first conference. So if anything goes wrong, please be easy on me. So I want to talk about, like, my topic is about manipulating through misinformation through the eyes of deepfakes. So it's like a really long topic, but I'll try to keep it digestible and something short, which can be done within 15 minutes. So I'm Sajid Jonathan. I'm from a tiny island in Asia called Sri Lanka. I'm currently working as a junior cybersecurity consultant. I'm finishing my bachelor's next month. I'm also a Microsoft Learn student ambassador. And apart from this, I'm a huge movie buff. I love watching movies and hopefully plan to take one in the future. All right. So what I'm going to talk today started for me in 2019. There's this wonderful town in Sri Lanka called Ella. So this is the train ride like which you have to take to Ella. So coming back from Ella back to my hometown, the trains were on strike. Then I had to go to a nearby town and get a bus and come home. So while waiting for the bus, I was just going through Hacker News and just some media platforms like just to kill time. And at that moment, I came across an article on Vice which had me dumbfounded. So it talked about this particular application called Deep Node, which can undress and make any picture, whatever picture you give, into a node with just a single click. I was so shocked. I was so shocked that like on the way home on the bus, I was just reading this article. I was looking at the references because this technology at that time was new for me. This is in 2019. So I've never heard about deepfakes before that. So I was really shocked and to see like, what is this really about? So with that, as a cybersecurity student, what I started thinking was, how can someone take advantage of this? That is what we usually think, right? How can someone misuse this? How can someone abuse this? Because that is what really interests me. So thinking of all the ways and can someone abuse this and the technology behind it, the deep fakes, really kept me going for the next few months. And I mean, for the rest of the year, I read most about deep fakes. I went to conferences regarding deep fakes to learn about it. And it gave me a lot of information. So before I start about like what is a deep fake, I just want to give a small idea to all the viewers in case you don't know about it. It's like manipulating any forms of digital media through AI. So this can be like an image, a video, or a sound. So an image can be like manipulated, like you can see Chris Evans here into like deepfaked into a female. If you have come across a video of Barack Obama, which was deepfaked, and even last year there was a video of Mark Zuckerberg deepfaked, and also it can be done to sounds where you can clone sound. So with all of this, like you might have a question, how is this different from general visual effects, which you see in movies and TV series and stuff? The main keyword is GAN, Generative Adversarial Network. On the left-hand side, you have the movie Gemini Man, where in Will Smith, he plays a dual character, a younger version of himself. And to come up with that younger version, they spent a lot of money for visual effects and a lot of workforce for that also. But on the right, you have another YouTube video, like where Will Smith is deepfaked onto Matrix as the character Neo. And even though the deepfake is not perfect, you can with looking at it, if you knew it was a deepfake, you can clearly say it was deepfake or manipulated in some way. What GANs do, or what the power of machine learning would do, it will give the masses, the general masses, the ability to deepfake on their own, even if they didn't know how to work with an animation application or even Photoshop itself. So how GANs work under the hood? I'll just keep it brief. There's like two submodules, a generator and a discriminator. A generator will try to come up with these fake paintings and try to fool the discriminator. The discriminator's job is to identify what's truth and what's the fake one out of that, and debunk whatever the generator is trying to make. So if the generator wins in this, then that would produce a good deepfake module, which can be used in any deepfake application. So the negative effects have been like overblown over the past couple of years. Even before doing this talk, I was like joining Discord and asking the team members, like, should I do a talk on this? Because just before doing this talk, I saw on Twitter like the negative effects on deepfakes are like just overblown and exaggerated. But I wanted to give a new perspective on that. So with the team's consultation, I was thinking, okay, I should go for this. So one negative effect, like thinking, like looking at this itself, you will understand misinformation is a huge thing. If you can fake and trick people into believing something which is not true, then there's a lot of things you could do. And like as cybersecurity, our professionals, like we know what can be done. So misinformation, extortion, using this fake image or photo and trying to get advantage of people in terms of monetary benefits, social engineering, market manipulation. So this interesting thing about market manipulation I came across. My first talk I attended on deepfakes by Alyssa Miller, where she talked about market manipulation, where you can attack a CEO or the director of a particular company and plummet their stocks by making deep fakes of them. So and a good example of social engineering is this particular article where the fraudsters cloned a company director's voice using deepfake technology and stole over $35 million and did a successful bank case. So there were like a couple of examples like this. And right now, deepfakes are not yet a one-click service. I can just play a video of Tom Cruise here, which is actually deepfake. It was famous for the last year. TikTok account called Deep Tom Cruise, where a particular visual effect artist come up with videos of him talking and acting like Tom Cruise. And even he mentioned that this is not yet a one-click service. Like it's not easy to do it, even though it looks like a good model. It takes time and a particular voice actor to act properly to come up with a good deepfake video where you can really trick people. So looking at all this and coming back to the article, which I read in Vice, after the article, there was a huge backlash for the particular founder of this app, and they deactivated the Twitter account and also said that they won't give any future versions of the particular DeepNode app. But the current versions are still online available. If anyone could search for it, it would like they could get their hands on it. And this was not the end. So after this, there were many reports that the deepfake bots were being used on Telegram. As Telegram bots and even as organized services where people have to pay and they can have a particular image defaked. So the difference between a normal photoshopped or manipulated or morphed visual effect and a deepfake is that a deepfake bot, if a good bot can run like hundreds and thousands of images at a time, and it's easy for the masses to come up with these fake images. So what are the current methods of combating deepfakes? Facebook ran a deepfake detection challenge in 2020, and the winning algorithm had average accuracy of 65.18% of detecting a deepfake. This is a good number, but this is not a great number when we are looking if we deploy this particular algorithm in Facebook itself to combat deepfake. 65.18 is like a low amount when we look at it from the real world perspective. Usual detection methods in deepfakes would be like digital watermarking, what they use to combat online privacy in theaters, where they have a watermark which is not visible to the naked eye, but by special cameras or tools, you can detect what is the source of this particular video to verify if it is a deepfake or not. Then there are many active forensic methods like automated face swapping detection, identifying asymmetry, like where the deepfake model will fail is mimicking human expressions. What makes us flawed, our small eye, like blinking of the eye, our small facial expression, that is something the deepfake model will struggle to mimic. So identifying that also is a good way to verify if a video or an image is true or not. Then we can use these separate methods of like detecting temperature around the face and all these small flaws which should be in a video, and use it as a fuse system to come up with a deepfake method. So I'm not really here to talk about the technological advantages over here, like the technological way of combating this. Like if you're looking at the challenges, technological challenges of combating deepfakes, since there are diverse types of methods of coming up with deepfakes, even though the underlying mechanism is same by use two submodels, the way you can tweak this and come up with different ways of deepfakes is very hard to combat them. And tools are easily found on the internet, like this DeepNode app. Someone could search for it and got it. Like Telegram apps, If you just like scour through dark web, maybe you can get it. There are also publicly available tools on GitHub, which if tweaked properly by the correct person, it can be harmful on the wrong hands. But what I really want to talk about here, it's not about the technological challenges, but the geographical and cultural challenges when we are dealing with misinformation. A good example of this is in 2018, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and the most used social media platforms were shut down in my country, Sri Lanka, for 72 hours due to a religious riot happening here, which was spread by hate and misinformation on online social media platforms. And in 2020, Facebook apologized for being a part of it because it was mainly done in their platform. And even not only in Sri Lanka, but in countries like Cambodia, Indonesia, Myanmar, misinformation and hate spreads like a ton in their platforms. The main issue, what Facebook at that point was with dealing with language barriers and cultural differences. They didn't have enough people who understood the local language to really identify if something is misinformed or a hate video or a speech. This also has to do with, so even if Facebook comes up with a particular technology to detect all of these, still it wouldn't really work in countries like Sri Lanka and like Asian countries, because the tools and technologies would be more catered to the Western part of the world, where it would be very effective there. But just like how they like there was a delay in dealing with misinformation on the Asian region, there would still be a delay in dealing with deepfakes again in the eastern part of the world, because it would be hard for a normal application or a normal training model to which is trained on the local language on a particular country to detect if it's a deepfake or not. So the real problem comes when we not look at deepfakes as a society, but when we look at from an individual perspective. When it becomes personal, what do? Imagine waking up to like tons of messages and calls from your friends, relatives, and your co-workers, like them reporting that they saw a particular nude image or a video of you in social media and also in other websites. Like, what would you do at that point? You see the video, I see the video and I know that it's not mine. Obviously, I didn't take it, but how did it come at the first place? Who did it? Like, there'll be so many emotions and everything running. So this is more like an extension of revenge porn or anything of that sort. But in reality, no explicit images of that sort exist. It was all altered and deepfaked by someone else trying to attack you. So there's this particular movie quote in Tamil, which I can loosely translate, which says that for truth to win, you need evidence, but for lies to win, like, confusion is enough. So with all the emotions running and all the confusion there, what can we do as an individual for someone who's affected by a deep nude or an image or a video altered by deep fake, which affects their dignity and their body, basically? So if it happens to me or you, like, the first emotions we would have would be like embarrassment, anxiety. If it's happened to a teenage boy, the pressure they would get from their friends, the pressure they would get from their parents for something which does not even exist, would give them a huge mental trauma and breakdown, and something they have to face. The basis of misinformation is not with technology, but with humans ourselves. We have this saying in the security, like, the weakest link in a particular system is human themselves. So when we as a people, like we as a person, individual person, like humans as collective, are the reason for misinformation. We have to make sure that a particular person or the particular community is well informed of the implications of deepfakes and like what are the implications of it. Because even though it can be well aware, like in the western part of the region, there can be still rural areas with in Asian regions and African countries, and even rural areas in particular western regions where people do not know about this technology and the implications it can make. So I tried to come up with an answer for all of these. Like, I need a conclusion for my presentation, right? Like, what is an ultimate solution for this in terms of battling it? Technological wise, it's a really cat and mouse games. We have to we have to try to whatever technologies like deepfake technology comes every day, like every day something new might come, you have to detect it, and it's a really cat and mouse game. The only way is by or the one way which we can stop this is by informing the general public, talking about this public in platforms with your peers, your community, and if someone is affected by this, to make sure that you talk to them and let them know that it's not their fault actually, because in the first place something like this does not exist, it's actually deep fake. So as I said, it would be a cat and mouse game at the end of the day, just like the deepfakers coming up with their model and we trying to detect what is fake or not. At the end of the day, it belongs to us as an individual and as a community member to make sure that everyone in the community are well like aware of this technology and what it can do and implications it can do, and make sure to give them the emotional support and the correct guidelines to come out of a trauma if something like this happens. So yeah, that's it with my talk. Thank you for having me here. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'll be happy to talk with everyone. I hope I didn't take too much.
All right. And well, thank you so much for that amazing talk, because I think, you know, looking at the feedback on the channel, you've done some really interesting research into this, and you've really sparked a great conversation about, you know, I knew about the hack of the German company that lost some money with the deep fake, but this is next level stuff. And I think it's a cautionary tale. You know, unfortunately, you're absolutely right. On the conclusion side, there isn't a heck of a lot we can actually do because this technology is outpacing us completely. So I'd like to thank you for that presentation, and I'm starting a conversation on our Twitch stream. And with that, I think we are now going to go to Scott and have him introduce our next speakers.
All right. Thank you for having me here.
Weren't you doing that?
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonathan. Wonderful. Thank you very much.